I'm James Jackson, lead pastor, Fervent Prayer Church, your host for Real People, Real Voices.
I'm your co-host for Real People, Real Voices, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It is, my brother. It's good to be here. It's good to be in the new year, doing new things and talking about new issues.
Yeah, we're just about through the first quarter of the new year.
And we're still on the air.
Yeah. In fact, we would love for you to become a part of our show by going to YouTube and becoming a subscriber. You can watch this show when it's over, and you can go back and glean very, very good information from other shows that you might have missed.
Right, and we're there for you. This is a community show, community conversation, and we hope we're making a community connection.
Absolutely, and we want you also to go to the Facebook page, WHMB TV 40 Facebook page, like us on Facebook.
I like it when you say that, like us on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
And of course, we want to encourage you to support our sponsors, Lee
Yeah.
Crossell and Crawley.
And the Stewart Mortuary, who's been in our community for over 50 years.
Doing a great job.
Yeah, and then we have the Fervent Care Christian Academy.
Yeah.
Christian school that represents Christ and is close to Christ in all that they do.
Yeah. Give them a call today, 317-898-2751. That's 317-898-2751. In our business, we deal with a lot of different things. One of those things is addictions.
Right. And we have a phenomenal young lady with us today that's going to help us understand how people can make it through these areas in their life, because she is what we call a survivor, and she's a very beautiful looking survivor as well.
Yeah. And an incredible book called Child of an Addict.
Right. Now that's going to be an interesting conversation today.
It's hot on
Amazon.
Amazon.
Over 3,000 books last year sold. And today we hope you will get this book and understand where she's coming from.
So stay with us. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And we're joined today by Miss Tamia Carruthers.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you.
Thanks.
You're doing a whole lot of different things. You're an author, mother, grandmother, believe it or not,
Yes.
and wife, and you're on radio, doing so many different things. But what we really want to talk about today is your new book. And talk to us about what precipitated you writing this book, Child of an Addict. This is an amazing book, several thousands sold on Amazon so far. And if you're watching, you could benefit from this book. Tell us why.
So, Child of an Addict came about from a whirlpool of my emotions. So I struggled with where I was, who I was, and where I came from for so many years. And so it wasn't until my emotions started to come out in different ways that I realized that there was something wrong. So once I started to become a person that I didn't even know who I was, I had to seek help. And so in our community, seeking help is just not a good thing, so to speak. So I started to see a counselor. I probably saw the counselor for about a year or so, but every time I saw that counselor, she would tell me to write, journal. And in my opinion, at that moment, I did not want to journal, because if you write it, it's there. It's not going anywhere. It's in the atmosphere. Anybody can pick it up and see what I'm struggling with. Because on the outside, you look like it's okay, but on the inside, a lot of us are struggling. So it wasn't until one day I had a really, really bad argument with my husband for something really small, and I honestly don't even remember what it was about. And that day is the day that I picked up the pen and started to write. And so that's where Child of an Addict came from. It started as a journal.
A bestseller.
Yeah.
A bestseller on Amazon. She didn't want to write, but now it's a bestseller.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Isn't that amazing what God can do?
Very
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
And Tamia, you said something very, very profound. You said, I realized that there was a problem.
And then in our community, we don't want to recognize that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the profundity of that is that there's a lot of people that always point the finger at other people. Of course, you were in that particular group of folks. How did you and when did you make that transition?
From coming,
From pointing the finger at everybody else and saying, hey, I have a problem.
I think it was when I realized that nobody made me who I was. And I had the ability to say, I'm not gonna be like them. That was my moment when I just knew that, I don't have to be that way. I can be a different way. And I was actually coming home from the grocery store one day, and it was that moment that James Fortune came on the radio, and he said, you don't know my story, to where I literally had to pull my car over and just let it out. That was the moment that I knew God was there, truly, because if I'm being honest with you and myself, there were plenty of times when I said, he can't be there. He's not there, because there's no way in the world I would have had to gone through all of those things only to be here. But that's the exact moment that he made me know, that he showed me I am here. I've always been here. If I was not here, then you could be doing just like they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. A child of an addict, if you could define one moment, other than the John Fortune moment, that was very pivotal for you, which moment would that be? That you can just go back to and say, if it had not been for this moment.
When I had my first child.
Yeah.
When I had my first child. A lot of people who come from that background don't really have a structure. They don't have something to focus on and say, okay, I'm going to go down this path. My path was at 15, my great-grandmother had a child. At 15, my grandmother had a child. At 15, my mother had a child. And here I was at 15 and had a child. So it was that moment that I said, no, I can't follow that path. I have to do something different.
Yeah.
A defining moment.
Yeah. And the title of the book, Child of an Addict.
Yeah.
Not I Am an Addict, but Child of an Addict. Why that title?
Because I am. I'm the child of not one addict, but two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that like?
Yeah, that was my next question.
It was overwhelming, especially not knowing what it really was then. And so there's a moment that I think about now that used to cause so much turmoil for me after I grew up and knew what I was looking at. So there's a moment in the book, and I've heard someone say this before, and I use it now myself, is that I was only the writer of the book. God was the author. Because there's things in this book that I would have not written on my own. And after I read the book and I noticed that there's things in there that, only I know them, but I don't remember writing them. But there's a moment where the character's name is Tiffany. Tiffany actually witnessed the first time that her mother was ever shot up with drugs. And in that moment there, I think that's the moment that defined me for so long, because I felt guilty. I felt as though there was something that I should have done at that moment, but I didn't really realize what was going on. But that's a moment there that caused me to be in a lot of mental distress for so long.
And not just mom, but also dad.
I really did not have a relationship with him, though. I knew him, but I could count on one hand how many times I seen him.
All right. So the recovery room, before we go to break, what's the recovery room?
The recovery room is actually my office where I do life coaching. And I tend to see a lot of adolescents and early adults in the recovery room that have parents with addicts. And even addicts themselves come to the recovery room. But I tend to focus on the child of the addict, because so many of them think that they're alone, and so many think that they have to follow the path that their parents, because they don't know anything else.
Yeah, and you say you talk in your book about not being alone. So kind of expand on that, and what does that mean that you're not alone?
Well, I think God sends you other people to kind of hold on to you and grasp and show you other sides of life. And so for me, because even though I had my great-grandmother there, God bless her, if it had not been for her, I don't know where I would be, but he also put other women in my life to show me what the structure of a mother is, to show me what the love is that you can receive from somebody else. And all family is not blood.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
All family
All
is not blood.
family is not. You have a point in your book where it says you try to convey, and I think we're not going to have time to get to it, but in the next we'll talk about that when we come back. It's not your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
So stay with us. We're going to come back and talk about that because you might be thinking
It's your fault.
it's your fault. And if you get this book,
You'll discover.
it's not your
Not your
fault.
fault.
We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
We're joined today by Tamia Carruthers, author, radio show talk host,
Life
talk show
coach.
host, life coach, all different
Grandmother.
kind of things, grandmother.
I couldn't believe that. Could you?
Why not?
You don't look like a grandma.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And I want to make sure you all know, and it's probably there on the screen, and I hope that it is, recovery room at Gmail, recoveryroomindy@gmail.com, recoveryroomindy@gmail.com. I was amazed at the affordability of your services with regard to life coaching. So I want to commend you for that. When we were going to break, Dr. Moore talked about the fact it's not your fault.
No. Explain that to our audience. What do
Absolutely.
you mean by that?
So when I say it's not your fault, it kind of reflects, that's how I had to take it too. Because so many times a child thinks that, if I hadn't done this or if the situation wasn't like this, maybe they wouldn't be like that. And so for me to recollect, and from what I know from people who told me, my mother was fine prior to her getting pregnant. And so after she became pregnant, that's when things started to tumble. So I used to take fault in that for myself to think, maybe if I never came about, she would have been okay. But to fast forward today, I know that it's not my fault. You cannot make somebody change, and you cannot make somebody do what you want them to do, especially if that person does not know how to be that. So for me, I used to want my mother to show me love and affection in a way that I wanted to receive it. But her mother never showed that. So she couldn't show me something that she never had any experience with, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. And one thing that is hard in the body of Christ and in Christendom is the firm idea, which becomes a part of our lives, and it should be. Talk about the period of forgiveness that you went through. Help people understand the process that you went through in order to make forgiveness plausible in your life.
So that was the hardest part for me, the forgiveness, because I think about, where were you when these things were happening in my life? Where were you when I was giving birth? Where were you when I made this accomplishment? Where were you when I graduated? Things like that. And so I carried those things in a hurtful way for so long. Mm-hmm. And so once I came to a point of forgiveness, today I can say I love her as who she is. So she's not the mother that I can crawl into bed with and say, hey, I just need some cuddle time. Or she's not the mother that'll call me or has an instinct like a mother that's with her child daily has. She doesn't know when to be a mother. But once I made up in my mind that she cannot give me those things that I long for, that's when I forgave her.
And you begin to develop them in your life.
Absolutely. And I give those things to my children on a daily basis because I never want them to question the love that I have for them. So now I'm in a position now where I know that my mother loves me, and I know the extent that that love is. And again, when people long for something from someone that cannot show them, that's a hurtful thing, especially when it's a parent.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how your mother was in one spot? Now she's in another spot. Mm-hmm. And she's probably had a conversation with you about those places. Mm-hmm. since you've forgiven her, her life has, believe it or not, you've helped your mother by forgiving her and helping her to understand. I'm not trying to be a psychologist or anything. I'm just basically telling you the truth. When a person can forgive somebody and they know, and that person knows that they've wronged that individual, that's therapy for them, because forgiveness, it was not for her, it was for you.
It was absolutely for me, and I can say that today it's totally different. It's the relationship is different. I don't have expectations, and that's a big thing, to not have any expectations. I don't expect anything from her. I just give her what I have to give her. So now we have a relationship that I'm trying to build. I'll talk to you when I'm comfortable, and you still have to keep boundaries, because some people will try to cross those boundaries. But with the boundaries that I've set, she knows what they are, and you got to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
She's no longer an addict, though.
No, she's been clean for about 3 years now.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she
Praise God.
celebrated her 58th birthday over the weekend. This was the first time that we've ever celebrated
Where'd
her
you all go
birthday
for her
together.
birthday?
We had ladies' night at my house. It was
Ladies' night, huh?
fantastic. Yes, but it's a good thing to say, I love you without any conditions.
Yeah. To me, your book is written in detailed story fashion. A lot of details in here about things that happened, how they transpired. When it came out, and your mother either read it or started hearing about it, your dad, others, did you get any pushback?
Absolutely. So before I even put the book out, I told my mother, listen, I'm writing a book. This is what it's called. And she knew at that point what it was about. A lot of family members didn't like it. But what you have to realize is that it's not for them, it's for you. And so only you can tell your story. And it's from your reality, it's not theirs. And you just got to go from there. Don't worry about what anybody else is going to say. Don't act, they're going to act how they want to because they're human. But a lot of people think about the pushback. They think about the reality of the situation. And some of them may even feel like,
You were inconsiderate.
Exactly. But no.
This was a coping tool, healing tool for you.
It was.
And I think that's amazing, to the point to where people don't understand that people have to do certain things, are led to do certain things, and to experience certain things to help them cope with the experiences that they've had. And through this book, your family probably looks at you totally different, not in a negative sense, but they probably understand now.
They
Because
understand.
this literally not only saved your life, but it saved the lives of your children. And I don't mean save your life as it reaching a final demise, but the structure, the love, the emotions that come intact that a mother gives a daughter or a son or a father or gives their children, that saved your children. That book saved you so that you could help save your children. A lot of people didn't look at it that way, but that's what really happened.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Thank you.
People see the difference. People see the difference. They do.
Yeah.
Well, it took a lot of courage to write it, a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
Empty chair on the cover.
Yeah.
And we're just about out of time. Empty chair there. What precipitated this kind of graphic on the front?
I struggle with abandonment issues. That book cover represents that.
Okay.
Yeah, need somebody sitting there.
And you found out that you were not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Tamia, it's been a pleasure to have you as a
It
guest.
has.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hope that you'll come back.
Absolutely.
What's your next book?
After 3 million copies sold.
Yeah, after 3 million copies.
Three.
Yeah. So you can then be our sponsor.
Right. Absolutely. That's a good speaking into existence.
Yes, we're speaking it into existence.
Well, we have the rundown to come. We're going to talk more about Child of an Addict. Hopefully you've already gone to Amazon and downloaded this great book. And we'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
And I'm grateful to be your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And I'm your executive producer, Faith McKinney.
And we're just having too much fun here.
Yes, it's a great set to
Yeah.
work on. Yeah.
Go to Facebook, like us on Facebook. Also, we'd love for you to become a YouTube subscriber, WHMB TV 40. You can watch this show and others that you might have missed. So they want to thank our sponsors.
We sure do. Fervent Care Christian Academy, a great place for your children. Not only that, Stewart Mortuary.
Yeah, and Lee, Castle, and Crowley. If you need some legal advice, and after all that running around, Shapiro's
Delicatessen. Yeah, Shapiro. Shapiro. Some say Sapai. I just say, good.
It is good.
It's phenomenal. So go by Shapiro's and tell them Pastor Wayne Moore sent you, and don't ask for a discount because you won't get one.
Love Shapiro's.
Child of an Addict, Tamia Carruthers. What an electrifying interview.
Yeah, Tamia Carruthers has an amazing story. You know, talk about generational curses. She's been through generation after generation, but what made her different was she recognized it, and she said, I'm going to stop. Let's stop this right now, and she sought help.
Yeah, and just for clarification, she has been blessed to sell 3,000 books on Amazon.
Yeah, in 1 year.
In 1 year, and we were
That's
just speaking.
huge.
Less than a year
We were
it came
speaking
out.
by faith.
Yeah.
3 million sold.
Yeah. In September. It hadn't been out totally a whole year,
Yeah,
as we
that's
know.
real good.
That's phenomenal, and
That
I think
is.
that she has an amazing story. I commended her and pray that it will become a playwright.
Yeah.
I mean, you have this is something Tyler Perry needs to look
All
at.
the makings.
Yeah, he needs all the makings of kind of work he does, and it's amazing. And she's a beautiful woman. I mean, you can tell and hear the mending that has taken place in her life.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you can hear the brokenness and the bitterness and the wounds. You can hear the mending that God has applied to her life.
Absolutely. I know that her goal is to help others, and that's what she's doing every minute of the day. That's her goal.
That's phenomenal.
Takes a lot of courage to write something like that.
It does. It does.
And she said you're not alone. I think that people need to understand that there are just thousands and thousands of people
Who are in this?
who are in this situation right now, the same situation she was in,
Yeah.
that could be encouraged.
Yeah, and we have information that you can get in touch with her. She can help you.
Yeah, the recovery room, you certainly want to go online and connect with the recovery room. Tamia Carruthers is a life coach, very affordable. I was very, very surprised at how affordable she is with regard to helping you deal with your life situation. Thanks for joining us today. As always, we love having you here with us, and we'll see you next time on Real People, Real Voices.
And we love you.